the word pivot, many of us, not all of us, but many of us will know the word pivot from Friends, where I think it's Ross and Chandler. I think it's Ross and Chandler are trying to get a huge oversized couch up their apartment stairs. And it's almost impossible because there's a curve. There's an angle that they have to get around, and they're trying every way to get this couch upstairs, and they're shouting, pivot, pivot, pivot. It's a hilarious scene. If you know it, you know it. And that's the universe saying, pivot, pivot. It's not working the way that you're trying to make it happen. You're trying to force it in a direction that's unnatural to you. And that's a metaphor for certain aspects of our life before we learn how to surrender, before we learn how to let go, before we learn what letting go means. Our egos don't like the word letting go, because letting go brings about doubt and uncertainty and this fearful kind of energy. If we can't see the future, we're not certain of the future, our ego moves into survival mechanism. Our ego moves into defense mechanism. It's like, okay, what's going to happen? Do I need to, it's like trauma response. It's like, do I need to freeze, flee, fight, fawn? What's going to protect me? But when you begin to surrender, let go, and trust, you're moving into an energy of allowance, and you're embracing that faith. You're embracing that trust because you know now you're so connected to yourself and you're so connected to your soul that you know that your heart knows the way. And so rather than trying to fit yourself into a specific path or a specific opportunity or a specific connection that just feels like there's so much resistance, and even if you're not resisting it, if we're talking about a connection or an opportunity, like a work or a job or something like that, if you're not resisting it, but the other person's resisting it, or it feels like there's resistance from the opportunity or the career or something like that, if it feels like the universe is pushing back, but not in a healthy way, the universe will push you forward in healthy ways. The universe will challenge you to keep stepping out of your comfort zone. But if you feel like the universe is pushing back in like an unhealthy way, in like a resistance way, then that's where you have to continue to surrender and let go and say, okay, maybe this is where I need to pivot. And so rather than trying to realign in such a way that it's causing more damage to you or the couch or the walls or the stairs, where it's forcing it at such a detrimental angle, so to speak, you're being asked to pivot. You're being asked to, rather than forcing it in one direction, you're being asked to realign. And it's not just one pivot. This happens time and time and time again until we really begin to embody and embrace that surrender. And what does that surrender mean? That means being very present with yourself and allowing for that flexibility, allowing for that adaptability. Because life is always going to take you by surprise, and it can be magical if you allow it to be. So yes, there are some instances where we need to plan. There are some instances where we need to have structure and discipline. And that creates that stability that is crucial for our nervous systems. That stability, that consistency is crucial for our very well-being. But surrender means allowing for adaptability, allowing for flexibility. And that's where you have the balance between stability and consistency and flexibility and adaptability. And masculine energy is that stability and that consistency. And feminine energy is that flexibility and adaptability. And in the center, in the middle, is where you have presence. That is where you're present with yourself. And it's in that presence that you allow yourself to surrender. Your presence, your ability to pivot, your ability to open up and expand and align with where your heart is leading you rather than predetermining where you think you need to be going, is what creates an expanded universe. And expanded universe means your own world. Your own world opens up. Again, those examples that I gave in the beginning were not for nothing. Those examples were anecdotes of where I've experienced, and there's 1,000 more examples of where I've experienced thinking that I'm going in one direction and life leads me in another. But it feels peaceful. We always say follow the peace. What feels peaceful? That's your true barometer for trusting your soul, trusting your path. Because the mind can, and until you are really conscious within the self, the mind can say, no, you have to go this way, you have to do this, you have to do that. But only when it's aligned with the heart, that's when you find peace. That's when you find balance. That's where you find harmony within. And when that happens, it's like the heart expands and your world expands and everything opens up to you. The world opens up to you. But you have to allow yourself the pivot and repeat the pivot. You have to allow yourself to course correct. Especially if you feel like you've gotten off your path or like there's been so many detours. The universe, God, will always help you get back on path. But you have to open up your heart enough to allow it and surrender enough to allow it. Sometimes you're not meant to go on the path that you think you're on for long. Or sometimes, let's put it this way, sometimes the path unfolds through different scenery than you expect, or through different experiences than you expect, or different connections that you expect. And your job is to surrender, because what your soul is guiding you to is your purpose. But you have to trust in that. You have to have a level of trust in yourself and that level of trust in God. You have to allow yourself to let go of the past, let go of the expectations, let go of where you think you're headed, and allow yourself to be present, to allow yourself to let life flow through you, because that is when magic happens. And when that magic happens, you're aligning to yourself. You're aligning to all of life. That's that unity consciousness from a bigger perspective, from the soul purpose perspective. You're aligned to everything. And so everything is possible. But there comes an element of surrender that is necessary. Pivot and repeat. Allow yourself to pivot. Allow yourself to shift. Allow yourself to change. And keep repeating until you're in the state of presence and you're just embodying that flow. You're just embodying that alignment. You're just in alignment with who you truly are, with your soul and with the universe. That's all it is. That's all it is. And it seems easier said than done sometimes until you get to that point in your journey. But until then, just keep taking the next step. Keep putting it into practice. It is a process. Everything is a process. So just keep putting it into practice. Keep putting it into practice. Keep putting it into practice. And every time you feel like you're detouring or you're off path, tune into your soul. Tune into your heart. Is your heart aligned with what you're creating in your mind? And if it's not, then get in alignment. And just keep surrendering. Just keep trusting. And just keep letting the path unfold and following that unfolding path.